Yeah, I discussed the unit 10 na biology portion sa unit 10 na ecology nuai chapter 14 na ecosystem ahia yadio ecosystem pen kha I atam pen ecosystem atam pen kha going to pa pen kha I amin kha densely kitchen jamte ma the term ecosystems was coined by densely Injen ajale ha ecosystem pen kha bangchi na ajale ecosystem pen kha it is the functional unit of nature. It can be visualized as the functional units of nature. Ajale ha ecosystem pen bangchi define di jale it can be defined as the functional units of nature where biotic as well as non-biotic where biotic and non-biotic interactions takes place. Where interactions between biotic and abiotic factors or components takes place. Biotic factors depend any living things. Any living organisms depend biotic abiotic factors or components non-living things So the interactions between living and non-living things it is known as ecosystem. Ecosystem atam pen densely na coin hinjin define ecosystem can be defined as the functional units of nature where interactions between biotic and abiotic factors takes place. Biotic any living components abiotic non-living things ecosystem pen a size pen the size varies. Ecosystem 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 a system a complex it can be broadly classified or categorized into two types. Ecosystem terrestrial ecosystem aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial ecosystem examples would be like forest terrestrial ecosystem, grassland desert terrestrial ecosystem aquatic ecosystem examples would be like oceans, river, pond or wetland aquatic ecosystem then ecosystem a size varies if you take the examples of pond ecosystem oceans ecosystem so the size varies. Ecosystem man-made there are some man-made ecosystem examples like aquarium examples of man-made ecosystem crop fields crop fields they are made by man man-made ecosystem Ecosystem it has four important components. Ecosystem components high components the first components of ecosystem is productivity. Ecosystem a components decomposition. Energy flow. Nutrient cycle. ecosystem in components li ani te pen kha the stability of the ecosystems will be depending on the productivity, on the decompositions, energy flow and nutrient cycles. Components ting ting kha ecosystem pen stable lo ya chi pen kha hong ki depend ma tuna example kahan ladina aquatic ecosystem pond example pen iladinga. Pond ecosystem pela bang om di ai chale. Suppose this is the aquatic ecosystem pond pen kha tui hinjen tui thuk lo ma it is a shallow water body hinjen asunga kha water om dinga at the bottom of the pond a pond a bottom pela kha bang om di ai chale soil om di mala soil om di hinjen water om di hinjen hai bana solar input li om di mani sa ki pata sun in kha a solar energy peding engine by bana atmosphere tia kha temperature humidity ting om ding engine. So all these temperatures, humidity, solar energy from the sun, water, soil ting kha they are abiotic factors ma. Abiotic factors engine by bana pond sunga abiotic factors te bang di ai jale. Biotic factors would be inside the pond. Pond sunga kha there will be many phytoplankton si te ma tamatangom di ve phytoplankton si te pen kha they are unicellular algae which can prepare their own food that can photosynthesize ma phytoplankton te kha large numbers of phytoplanktons is found in the pond by bana. There will be some algae, floating plants, plants found in engine. Here they think phytoplanktons, algae, floating plants, biotic factors engine because they are living organisms. They will constitute the autotrophs. Autotrophs or producers. Producers or autotrophs because they have the ability to synthesize their own food. They are autotrophs or producers. Synthesize their own food. Producers autotrophs autotrophs because they are preparing their own their food with the help of sunlight amount undekibol there will be some other biotic factors, living organisms like zooplankton. Ganhin chi tuam le om de ve frog chi te khong ma hai te om din jin hai te teng kha banga constituted ya le hai te kha they are fish khong le om mai the ma fish khong le om the they are constituting the consumers ichi changina hai ten kha they will be depending andiwa ya phytoplanktons algae chi tiang ki depend ma hai te kha amount le din there will be some other biotic factors like fungi, bacteria, fungi, bacteria. They are constituting the decomposers. Decomposers phytoplanktons, algae, floating plants, zooplankton, other consumers. Why they fungi, bacteria, a dead organic matters they consume they will decompose them. Why they are decomposers. Examples of pond ecosystem hinjan which river, oceans, forests, grassland interactions between abiotic and biotic factors interactions only the conversions of inorganic materials to organic materials by autotrophs. Autotrophs they penin kha inorganic materials they organic zam convert the region. Hai zo changa by organic matters they pen kha it will be consumed by the consumers through planktons chitema hai bana other consumers then yai te pen kha I hon si changwa their dead bodies would be decomposed by fungi and bacteria. This whole process would be repeated over and over again. The movement of energy. The ultimate source of energy is from the sun. Sun akipat energy. Ama sa pinaka energy on kipat naka sun bigay. So this energy which the plants use for making their food is from a source pinaka sun akipat hinjin. Energy ki pass on even. Hey energy pinaka first autotrophs dia on ki pass engine. Autotrophs dia ki pata consumers dia on ki pass engine. Consumers dia ki pata decomposers dia on ki pass engine. Decomposers dia pending kha they will pass their energy to autotrophs again. Energy ki pass pen kha the movement of this energy is unidirectional. Direction from lower trophic levels to higher trophic levels. Tuna ecosystem are four components there: productivity, decompositions, energy flow, nutrient cycles. Ecosystem in four components. First components benka productivity, second na benka decompositions, two na energy flow, ali na nutrient cycles. Two na amasa pen productivity ending. Productivity ichangina bangchi na productivity can be defined as the amount. It is the amount of amounts of organic matter. Organic matter it is also known as biomass. It is the amount of organic matters or biomass which is synthesized by a trophic level. Synthesized by trophic levels. Trophic levels examples among producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, their trophic levels. So the amounts of biomass or organic matters which is produced or synthesized by each trophic levels is known as productivity. Productivity the two types of productivities are: number one is primary productivity ani inapian kha secondary productivity kijiya. Primary productivity pen kha bangchi na primary productivity it is the amounts of organic matter synthesized by the trophic levels producers. Amount of organic matter or biomass synthesized by trophic level by the trophic levels producers. Producers it mainly includes plants which can synthesize their own food. They are producers, mainly plants, some algae. They are primary productivity. Secondary productivity it is the amount of organic matters or biomass which is synthesized by the consumers. Amounts of organic matter synthesized by consumers. Consumers level there can be primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. They are included under consumers. So organic matters consumers are synthesized it is known as secondary productivity. Yeah, primary productivity penakha, there is a term which is known as gross primary productivity. PP ka chida PP penakha primary productivity china ma gross primary productivity bangji na ai chiale gross primary productivity chi changina a producers ina a total amounts of organic produce or a synthesized penukha, it is known as gross primary productivity. Total amount of organic matter OM chintohan kaldinga OM penha organic matter chinamo total amounts of organic matters synthesized by the producers is known as gross primary productivity. Why bana net primary productivity le omengine, which is also known as NPP le kichidi hai penha GPP kichidi ma GPP penha gross primary productivity engine net primary productivity penha NPP le kichidi hai net primary productivity pen again maina ya gross primary productivity ya the total amounts of organic matter synthesized by the producers ya organic matters producers then synthesized penha bangdi nga jangdi wai jale producers te penha they are mainly plants they are at a fixed positions. Animals they do not move from one place to another. Plants they do not use their energy. They do not use much of their energy for locomotions. Amaw ka mun khata pa na mun khata ke tuan vil hilo mun khata akitu na ya ma hilo apo na ya ma om de hi sa kwa a energy synthesize te penu kha locomotions dia ke janglo ma a chale energy penu kha bangdi na janglai chale most of the energy synthesized by the producers is used up for respirations are dia janglo ma ya net primary productivity ji jangina the total amounts of organic matter synthesized by the producers, which is known as gross primary productivity, minus the amount of energy or organic matter used up by the plants for respirations. Plants ten kha a energy synthesized te peno azat hiak teng ma why pento a total amount of organic matter as synthesized peno why tikel I minus ale we get net primary productivity. Net primary productivity is jangina the total amounts of organic matters synthesized by the producers minus the amount of organic matters that they used up for various activities, which is mainly respirations. Net primary productivity gross primary productivity minus respirations, because plants they use most of their energy for respiration, so respirations hey primary productivity they depends on certain factors. Primary productivity they depends on various factors. The factors they firstly they depends on plant species which is inhabiting or growing in a particular area. Munkhata plant species they depend on the plant species, and they are also depending on the environmental factors. Environmental factors, the temperatures, the humidity, the wind factors. Also, they are depending on the availabilities of the nutrients. Availabilities of nutrients. The primary productivity primary productivity is the amount of organic matter synthesized by the producers. Producers is mainly plants which can synthesize their own food. Gross primary productivity is the total amount of organic matter synthesized by the producers. Gross primary productivity net primary productivity is the gross primary productivity, which is the total amounts of organic matter synthesized by the plants or producers minus the energy used up by the plants for various activities, which is mainly respirations. Tuna is secondary productivity and non-dinga. Secondary productivity it is the amount of organic matters synthesized by consumers. Consumers level primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, different trophic levels but they are all included under consumers because they are depending directly or indirectly on the primary or producers. They are consumers. Under secondary productivity, we have gross secondary productivity. Gross secondary productivity. Gross secondary productivity gross primary productivity it is the total amount of organic matter synthesized by it is synthesized by the consumers. Primary productivity it is synthesized by producers. It is synthesized by consumers. Net secondary productivity net secondary productivity it is the gross secondary productivity minus consumers they are mainly animals including humans. Animals unlike plants they move from one place to another, so most of the energy synthesized by the animals or consumers is used up for locomotions, or respirations. They are digestions. Our energy is used up for all of this. So the energy used up for locomotions, respirations, digestions, and metabolic processes, different metabolic processes, total amounts of organic matter synthesized by the consumers, which is the gross secondary productivity. Then we'll get the net secondary productivity. Minus various activities like locomotions are the energy I use, respirations are the use, digestions are the use, metabolic activities gross secondary productivity minus value amount of organic matters or amount of energy or amount of biomass that we get is known as net secondary productivity. The second components of ecosystem the second components of ecosystem is decompositions. First components of ecosystem productivity second decompositions. Decompositions it is an aerobic process aerobic process it requires oxygen. In the absence of oxygen decompositions process occur. So it is a process which is depending on oxygens. Decompositions decompositions can be defined as the breaking down of organic matters. It can be defined as the breakdown of organic matters into inorganic substance. Process it is known as decompositions. Inorganic substance it can be like carbon dioxide, water, minerals, nutrients. They are inorganic substance. So decompositions can be defined as the aerobic process, which includes the breaking down of organic matters into inorganic substances. The important steps involved in decompositions steps involved important steps involved in decompositions. A step first example fresh leaves flowers, barks, twigs, when it falls from the plant, from the parent plant, on fall last soil they will be converted into detritus. Detritus and converting the process of converting fresh leaves into detritus. This process is known as fragmentations. Fragmentations the fresh leaves is broken down into smaller particles. Fresh leaf broken down the way process it is known as fragmentations. Broken down form the way it will form a detritus. Detritus it is also known as the raw material of decompositions. Detritus it is the raw materials of decompositions. This detritus will be again converted into a dark substance which is known as humus. Humus convert the process of converting detritus into humus. This process is known as humification. Humifications it is the process of converting detritus into humus. Humus it is a dark color colloidal substance. A color it is a dark color. It is colloidal in nature. Dark color colloidal substance. Humus it will be further converted into minerals. The process of converting minerals or nutrients, the process of converting humus into minerals, this process is known as mineralization. Mineralizations it is the process of converting humus into minerals. Minerals it will be present in the soil or in water. Minerals if it is present in the soil or water, they will be again absorbed by the plants for various metabolic activities, and it will the process would go on. The important steps involved in decompositions. First fragmentations. First step fragmentations. Fragmentations it is the process of breaking down the organic matters or the fresh leaves into smaller fragments or smaller particles to form detritus. This process is known as fragmentations, and detritus is the raw materials of decompositions. Converting detritus into humus is known as humifications, and the process of converting humus into minerals is known as mineralizations. There are some other processes which we didn't mention. Catabolism. Catabolism it is a destructive process engine. It involves the breaking down of particles. It involves breakdown reactions. Catabolisms it will be taken up by some fungi or some bacterial enzymes. Fungi they will secrete some enzymes, and that enzymes will help in degrading or breaking down detritus into inorganic substances. Simply it is the breakdown reactions, or it is the breaking down of particles. The fifth one is leaching. Leaching after the process of mineralizations, when minerals is form. Minerals form minerals it will be released in the soil. Soil release minerals if the plants is not absorbing them. Plants absorb these minerals will fall deep into the soil. They will start converting into a solid, a salts or solid, which is in the form of solid. Yai hon ki convert changa ha minerals te pen ha salts yam solids yam san ki convert changa. The plants is not able to absorb them. So this leaching process is harmful for the plants, for the survival or for the growth of the plants. Because they are unable to absorb them. Leaching you can precipitations minerals they precipitate, they get precipitated they get precipitated inside the soil, deep inside the soil, and they will get converted into a salts or a solid which is not absorbable for the plants. They are harmful for the plants. Leaching we can simply say it is the precipitations of minerals deep inside the soil during percolation. Percolations this minerals deep inside the soil like when it drains minerals soil deep inside the soil they will start they will get precipitated, and a precipitate they will be converted into solids form like salts, and these are unabsorbable by the plants, so they are harmful for the survivals of the plants. Humus again humus it is a dark color which is colloidal in nature substance. They are also very resistant to microbial actions. Humus they are resistant to microbial actions. When the process of converting humus into minerals, minerals form the it takes a long period of time. It is a very slow process. Process very slow. Minerals release the or minerals form the slow process engine. A slow process it is advantageous for the humus, because soil humus it is good for the survival, or it is good for the growth of the plants. Because they are resistant to microbial actions. The process of converting this into minerals is very slow. Humus minerals convert let's say it is a fast process. Before the plants absorb the minerals, these minerals would be percolated deep into the soils, and they will be converted as an unavailable source for the plants. But since this is a slow process plants they are able to absorb the minerals which is released by the humus through the process of mineralizations. The rate of decompositions decompositions a rate it is depend on certain factors. Rate of decompositions depends on certain factors. The first factor is the compositions. First is the compositions. Compositions it can be divided into two types: the lignin or cutin rich compositions and the sugar or nitrogen rich compositions. If the decompose compositions lignin cutin then the rate of decompositions would be slow. Decompose slow. But if the decompose if the compositions of sugar and nitrogen is many, or it is rich, then the rate of compositions would be very fast. And this is the first factors. A second factors external conditions in the engine. External conditions sa bangai chale like temperature, moisture level, the rate of fractions of if the moisture is sufficient, moisture is then the rate of decompositions would be fast, and if the temperatures if it is optimum, if it is maximum, then the rate of decompositions would be fast. Temperatures suppose the temperatures is very low hile the enzymes they at a very low temperatures enzymes becomes inactivated, enzymes they active rate of decompositions slow. But if the temperatures is optimum, maximum, then the enzymes activities would be maximum. Rate of reactions would be fast. Temperatures, when it is too high, temperatures the enzymes becomes denatured. Rate of decompositions would be slow again. So external conditions also plays very important roles in determining whether the rate of decompositions would be slow or fast. Third factor is oxygen. If oxygen, then I again hit decompositions, it is an aerobic conditions, aerobic process aerobic process because it requires oxygen for its process. Oxygen's atamale, then the rate of decompositions would be faster. Low oxygen level, then the rate of decompositions would be slow. Third components of ecosystem first to second components productivity to decompositions a third components energy flow energy flow it is unidirectional here. Energy flow it will be from lower trophic levels to higher trophic levels. It will flow only in one direction. The ultimate source of energy on Earth. Energy a source it is the sun. The sun is the ultimate source of energy on Earth. Plants producers sun energy then they will make their organic matters, their food by themselves. They will prepare it by themselves. So organic matters or energy with the help of sunlight it will be consumed by the consumers, and the energy will be flowing from producers to consumers, consumers to decomposers, from decomposers again to the producers. It will go on. Let's say this is the Earth. Sunlight let's say 100% out of that 100% sunlight which is entering the Earth, less than 50% sang atomzo it is photosynthetically active. And it is given the name less than 50%, which is photosynthetically active it is also known as PAR. PAR is P stands for photosynthetically, A stands for active, photosynthetically active, R stands for radiations. 100% sunlight, sun radiations are harmful. Out of that 100%, less than 50% sang atomzo they are photosynthetically active. And this photosynthetically active sun radiations that is coming from the sun is known as PAR. PAR it is photosynthetically active radiations. Out of this less than 50% of photosynthetically active radiations, only 2 to 10%. Less than 50% sun energy or sun radiations, only 2 to 10% is used up by the producers for preparing their food. 2 to 10% radiations or energy it is used up by producers to prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis process plants they will be preparing their own food using only 2 to 10% of the photosynthetically active radiations. Trophic levels trophic levels it is a functional place of organisms in an ecosystem. It is the functional place of organisms in ecosystem. Here trophic levels it can be explained like this, like the best is the producers they because they are the organisms that can prepare their own food. Animals, humans we are depending directly and indirectly on other organisms for food. We are not producers. Producers they are mainly like plants which can prepare their own food with the help of sun energy or sunlight. Producers they will be again eaten up by the consumers. Consumers it can be of different levels. The best of the trophic levels is occupied by the producers. Producers like plants, grass, this occupied the first trophic levels T1, first trophic levels. The producers is eaten up by or herbivores. Producers herbivores in the or herbivores producers depend. Producers they prepare their own food. How does the producers prepare their own food? By the process of photosynthesis using sun energy. Sun energy, chlorophyll, plants, green plants, they are only white chlorophyll, green pigments, carbon dioxide, which they get it from the atmosphere, water, which they absorb it from the soil through the root hairs. Using all these factors, the producers will be preparing their own food or their organic matters, their energy. Producers, they energy afom te pen aman respiration na dia some energy pen amau zang di unchen energy dang teng teng asat lo teng teng amau store di unchen hai te pen when it is when these producers or grass or plants is eaten up by herbivores, then the energy is passed on to the herbivores. Herbivores they occupy the second trophic level. Herbivores they are also known as primary consumers. Primary consumers they are consumers, they depend on producers directly for their food. Direct dependent they are occupied, they are also known as the primary consumers. Herbivores they will pass on their energy to carnivores. Carnivores they occupy the third trophic level. They are also known as secondary consumers. Secondary consumers because carnivores they are usually depending indirectly on plants and directly on herbivores. They are the secondary consumers. Examples would be lion, lions are examples of carnivores. Examples of herbivores would be like goat, cow, example on hidden. The next trophic levels is of scavenger. Scavengers when the carnivores dies, when the lion the scavengers will eat the dead body of the lions and the energy would be transferred to them. So trophic levels the fourth trophic levels this are also known as the tertiary consumers. Trophic levels are bang process take place there is transfer of energy. Trophic levels there is transfer of energy from one trophic levels to another trophic levels. Transfer of energy takes place. It is food chain ending. Food chain it is the sequence where one species is eaten up by another species. For example, if we see a grassland bang entalenga the grass producers the grass it will be eaten up by, let's say, goat. Goat it is eaten up by lion. When lions dies, it will be eaten up by vulture or hyenas, which depends which are scavengers. Then this would go on. Tune up grass ting bang grassland in a particular area. Grassland grass ting it will disturb the food chains. Good Sidio bana among goat ting si video lion anong load mo tun bang grass goat ting bang that bileng grass and to the load engine, so the grass would be grass unlimited or it will be uncontrollable. Tamlo the engine by bana lion the lions would die. Tun bang grass tamlo le and to the omlo by bana a lion and so they will definitely die. Grass on polio they will also die. This shows that this shows that every living organisms we are interdepending on each other. Food web food web it is the interconnected food chain. Food web can be defined as the interconnected food chain. Food chain when they are interconnected, for example, grass they can still feed on herbs, plants, shrubs, they can still feed on these plants. If we kill all the goats, then the lion can still eat other animals like the zebra. So this whole interconnected food chains is known as food webs. Nature exists, it is the food webs which is existing. Food chains it can be of two types. Food chains can be categorized into two types. GFC. GFC it is the grazing food chain. Ani inaka DFC DFC detritus food chain. GFC they starts with the producers. GFC grazing they will be starting with producers. And the main channel for this is the main channel for energy transfer. Energy transfer the main channel it is in aquatic system. Detritus food chain it starts with, as the name suggests, detritus, it will be starting with dead decaying organic matters. Dead and decay organic matter. A main channel for energy transfer is in the terrestrial ecosystem. Food chains it is divided into two types. Grazing food chains to detritus food chain. Grazing food chains it is starting with producers, and the main channel for energy transfer is in the aquatic ecosystem. Detritus food chain it starts with dead and decaying organic matters of plants or animals, and this the main channel for energy transfer is the terrestrial ecosystem. About ecological pyramid ending, ecological pyramid penha, the concept was introduced by Elton. A concept introduced to Paha Elton is that this ecological pyramid is also known as Eltonian pyramid. Eltonian pyramid like it is lawale ecological pyramid like it is ma hai pinha introduced to pa pinha Elton engine achale hai ecological pyramid pen bangai chiale ecological pyramid chi chanina dena trophic levels tom isinte yet hit discuss sati pinha hai relationships between relationships pinha study ma it is the studies of different types of relationships between the various trophic levels. Trophic levels then are producers, consumers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. Trophic levels relationships in different ecosystem. Ecosystem first introduced there are pond ecosystem, oceans ecosystem, grassland ecosystem. Ecosystem trophic levels relationships study ecological pyramid ecological pyramid ecological pyramid it helps us understanding in how the energy is transferred or how the energy is flowing from one trophic levels to another trophic levels. Ecological pyramids also helps us in understanding how the energy is transferred or how the energy is flowing, how energy flow takes place in different trophic levels. Ecological pyramid it is on the basis of three important components. It is based on number, it is based on the biomass, and lastly it is based on the energy. Pyramids of number, pyramids of biomass, and pyramids of energy. Ecological pyramid was introduced by Elton. It is also known as Eltonian pyramid. Ecological pyramids it studies different types of the relationships between various trophic levels in different ecosystems. This ecological pyramids helps us in understanding how the energy is transferred from one trophic levels to the next trophic levels. Will be studying based on the number, biomass, and energy. First pyramid of number pyramid of number it is based on the number of the species. Example let's take the examples of grassland bangla taleng. Okay, before coming to this one, ecological pyramid a shapes pyramid a shapes first which is broad at the base and narrow at the apex. This is the normal shapes of pyramids. Normal shapes engine. It is upright pyramid. Normal shape. There is broad at the apex and narrow at the bottom. It is known as inverted pyramid, inverted upright pyramid. It is known as spindle pyramid, spindle shape pyramid. A shape a sequence a base producers producers in a bottom primary consumers, secondary consumers, then tertiary consumers. A bottom it will be occupied by the producers, then by the primary consumers, secondary consumers. A bottom producers primary consumers, secondary and tertiary, and it will go on. a sequence pen kha ki heng ni lo the producer state pen kha bottom om gi ge but the shape pen kha chu atom om thema. It can be upright, it can be inverted upright, and it can be spindle shape pyramid. Tuna ya pyramid of number pen endinga grassland. The bottoms is occupied by the producers. Grassland geni is agina a producers they will be grass then grass a number of grass would be very many. Grassland is a grass pose the area would be filled with grass. It is the first trophic levels. Producers would be grass. The next trophic levels, which is T2, T1 first trophic level. The next trophic level, T2, is of herbivores or primary consumers. A grass take quantity there may be some goat or some cow. A number a grass 1,000 lakhs millions a number of grass pen a numbers of goat or the numbers of cow a number of goat a cow pen so next there will be carnivores. Carnivores they will occupy the third trophic levels. So let's say lion. Hey lion the number of goat or the numbers of cow and the numbers of lion. Lion the numbers so hey a shape pyramid a shape bang shape it is broader at the base, becoming tapering at the end. So we get an upright pyramid. So the pyramid of numbers in grassland or the shapes of pyramids is upright pyramid. Example let's take the examples of a tree ecosystem. Tree only one tree. The producers tree ilak pen here T1. Let's say this is one tree. Tree pen tree pen there will be birds, there will be worms, insect, buds. The number of tree is only one. Primary consumers that a number ends mixi so this is broader. This occupies the second trophic levels. There will be some secondary consumers like eagle, which eats on the smaller consumers. A number as compared to the primary consumers, a number hatom. So in this case, we get a spindle-shaped pyramid. Ocean ecosystem or pond ecosystem ocean ecosystem the producers would be a phytoplankton. Phytoplankton they are very minute unicellular organisms that can photosynthesize, that can prepare their own food. They are the producers. Phytoplankton it will be the food for some primary consumers like small fish. They will be depending on phytoplanktons for their food. A number as compared to phytoplanktons, it will be lesser. The secondary consumers the number would be lesser as compared to primary consumers. So we get a inverted shape so it is an upright, not inverted, upright pyramid. Pyramids of biomass ending pyramid of biomass biomass is the we are talking about the dry weight the actual mass of the species tunbang plant species water content a moistures content it is the dry weight humans animals animals flu water it comprises of only the dry weight. Why dry weight pengen pyramids of biomass it can be of different shapes. Then are pyramids of numbers pyramids of numbers we see the examples in grassland, oceans and trees a pyramid a shape they are different. Can upright can spindle shape engine. So the pyramids of numbers also has different shapes. The pyramids will be having different shapes. Why to pyramids of biomass they will be having different shapes pyramid. Tunbang example example bang ocean based on the number I like engine based on the biomass, on the weight when the moisture contents or water is being extracted out of the species. Oceans abang producers oceans they are usually the phytoplanktons. And I can phytoplanktons they are very small unicellular organisms. A number to atui content a moisture content extract collagen at a weight so they will occupy, this producers will occupy the first trophic levels. And next fish a number this will occupy the second trophic levels. A number the weight would be heavier as compared to the producers. And next ngalian a number even after extracting their moisture contents or water contents, the weight it will be heavier as compared to the primary consumers. We get pyramids which is inverted upright pyramid. Grassland grassland producers grass dry a moisture contents extract the weight would be a plant state grass state the weight would be heavy this would occupy the T1 or trophic level 1, the first trophic level. Next those animals that feeds on the grass their dry weight or their biomass would be less heavier as compared to the producers. Secondary consumers their dry weight would be lesser or less heavier as compared to the primary consumers. So we get an upright pyramid. Pyramid shape we get upright. The pyramids of biomass they show different shapes of pyramids, as well as pyramids of numbers. Pyramids of numbers they are showing different shapes of pyramids. Pyramids of energy pyramids of energy it is the shape a pyramid it is always upright. Pyramids of energy pyramids is always upright. In every ecosystem, ecosystem ocean grassland pond ecosystem a structure or a shape it will be always upright. Upright this is because of the transfer of energy. Energy transfer it follows 10% law. Why upright transfer of energy transfer of energy follow 10% law. Hey 10% law pen ha it was given by Lindman. Hey 10% law in bangagi ani chiale from one trophic level to another trophic level 10% of the energy is being transferred. Tunbanya producer pen ha first trophic level e jumala hey first trophic levels pen ha 10% energy and next trophic levels ascending engine. Hey primary consumers pen ha 10% energy ascending engine. Ya secondary consumers in the 10% energy pen ha atunga ascend to demo. So according to 10% law, the 10% energy is passed on to the 10% energy is passed or transferred to the next trophic level. Tun bang ya example bang dadinga hey bang producers depend always at the bottom mo producers trophic level 1 tun bang ya trophic producers depend let's say they synthesize 1000 energy mo 1000 energy bang synthesize the leo producers depend they will be eaten up by herbivores. Producers they are 10% of this energy penha herbivores they are transferred it. That means 100% would be transferred to the herbivores. Herbivores would transfer 10% of their energy to carnivores. That means 10 carnivores they are scavenger or tertiary consumers they are 10% of energy would be transferred 10% heated to 1 jinama. Since 10% of energy is being transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level, trophic level they li kan omlo china to hey aban depend energy so non low engine so li 4 5 chitan kan omlo the more trophic levels depend Abana ecological successions ending hey ecological successions it is very important characteristic features of communities. Yeah, all communities they undergo change in the compositions and structures of ecosystem. Yeah, communities a compositions to a structures structures of ecosystem it is because of the changes which is brought about by the organisms that is living in the that particular area or in that communities. Species which start a successions iti changina khatom hit changa khatom omma aban banai ja khat hit khata honom zel china ya species which starts a successions iti dina species which starts succession by species they are known as pioneer species kichima species tunbang area kata species bang maomnai lo y species omma sa pian y y species it is known as pioneer species ahia y bana species which is at the end which appear at the end species atop na pian ma which appear at the end and that remains y species then y species it is known as climax species or it is also known as climax community. Species which starts the successions to species which appear at the end. Alas penpina species there are many species. Species they are known as or they are also known as serial communities. Ecological successions it is an important characteristic features of communities. Communities every communities or all communities they undergo changes in their compositions and structures of their ecosystem. Changes it is due to the species which is living in that particular communities or in that particular area. Species species a successions pan to pen amasa pen it is known as pioneer species. Why bana species which appear at the end or at the last and remains why omden pen it is known as climax species. Why kikala pioneer species to climax species kikala species omde pen they are known as or they are also known as serial communities. Hey, ecological successions it is based on the place. It can be categorized into two types. First na primary successions second na secondary successions primary successions so secondary successions primary successions area khata, it can be a particular any area khat life form omnailo him organic matter le omlo soil le omlo bangma omlo na area where pioneer species will start or the successions will start why moon area it is known as primary successions. It in heading an area where there is no life form before. Life ki form hangilo him area where there is no organic matter. Organic matter chitile on low soil, water chitile bang maamlo mo why moon it is known as primary successions. If life starts in such area, that area where there is no life form before, life form hangilo him primary successions ki successions on nadia life form on nadia yay primary successions it takes a long time, a long period of time. Examples would be like volcanic eruptions on Zochanga Waikim Lekianga Te there will be cool lava. When the lava is cooled, why munte life form honki panwai pele, it could be an examples of primary successions. Why bana rock tungwa swang lian te swang lian pipi tunga life form omnilo why dia life form honki panwai tele primary successions in agitatinga. Why bana secondary successions an area where there is life before life form an omhin sa hilile bangsia kyam a life form ting ana omnon lo why a life form on kipandi successions on kipandi why they pen secondary successions ki secondary successions it is an area where there was life earlier or before. Successions on it takes a shorter period of time as compared to primary successions. Secondary successions are shorter. Like it takes hundreds of years. Primary successions it takes thousands of years. As comparing primary successions and secondary successions, the time taken by secondary successions is shorter as compared to primary successions. Secondary successions are examples would be like forests. Forest forest it is destroyed or it is damaged due to, let's say, fire. Forest fires forest singkung te ganhing te ting sihin vek life form hon ki pannon it takes a shorter time, and life form hon ki pannon successions it is known as secondary successions. Forest til ting trees, herbs, shrubs, grass, animals on te ting sibe due to, let's say, fire. A soil pen omhin sahi izaka life on ki form non depend it takes shorter time period. Primary successions it takes longer time as compared to secondary successions. Life form an omlo soil le omlo, there is no soil, no water. It takes longer period of time. Volcanic eruptions on Minjin, lava tepen hongki kulta. Hongki kul kichanga bang chidia species hong om masapen dena igen sama bang species hong om masapen which will be starting the successions. Pioneer species kijinjin. Cool primary successions example akon laga cool lava or rocks bang species te hon po thei diwai jale plants te plants normal plants te jimai ni any plants they ha both lo de ve mo ha lava te hong rock te hon both mo lo de atang ba the in a spore som le both mo lo de there are some species of lichens like those that grows on rocks mo hai lichens te pen kha they will start growing in that area in the cool lava or in the rocks. Hey, lichens they pen khabangan jide jale they lichens they secrete some acidic substance. Malas lichens they ha acidic substance they secrete they why they don't secrete jangwa why acidic substance a secrete they pen you know they will break down these rocks or lava into smaller sediments. Why sediments they pen ha they will start forming soil. More soil and form they why swang you swang they han you chika hun breakdown hit janga yai soil hong janga ha lichens they been yai lichens that grow on rocks they cannot survive again more soil on janga ha lichens they on grow they no so the lichens will die off. Lichens they pen kha on sediment and next are species hong on the pen kha those or species that can grow even in little soil here soil on pen kha tam lo de ve tom chik chau de so those species that can grow in little soil they are bryophytes chi de more lower plants like algae chi de pen kha they can grow in an area where there is small amount of soil, so bryophytes will grow, and after some times the soil formations soil hong tam de the water content le banga hong khangdiam the conditions would be unfavorable for the bryophytes to survive. Bryophytes they can come on survive so they will die, and the next species would start succeeding. And next species they pen like pteridophytes pteridophytes they han after some times they will also die, and it will leads to some other species chidang kha hong pongnon do dinjen like angiosperm gymnosperm they honam dinjen. After some times this will comes to a climax community. Climax communities is the species which appear at the last na penpena species on the penka a conditions ya soil ya temperature ya water conditions they can change the species they penka tolerate so ma hing so to silo ya species they penka they are known as climax species, or they are also known as climax communities. A climax community they will remain stable as long as the environment they remain unchanged. Depending on the habitats, depending on the natures of habitat, ecological successions can be of different types. Based on habitat, ecological successions can be of different types. If the succession starts in water, a succession span, if it starts in waters, it is known as hydrarch, or it is also known as hydrosphere. If the succession starts in rock apan kipan mga hiyale, it is known as xerarch or xerosphere. If it starts in land, it is known as lithosphere. Here succession step in whether it is starting in water, tuya kipatakipanha hilawal roka kipanha lena kipanha huipewa kipanlele, it will all this will the species will strive, or it will progress towards climax conditions or amasic conditions. Xeric conditions is rock conditions like there will be less amount of water, negligible amount of water, on the less amount of water or negligible amount. It will progress towards amasic conditions. Amasic conditions amasic conditions is a moderate water conditions, where the water conditions is not so less or not so much. Hydric conditions example in Gentani hydric conditions penka where there is large amounts of water plenty of water is there. Even this will progress towards amasic conditions, which is moderate water. Both will be going towards or progressing towards amasic conditions, which is known as amasic conditions where there will be moderate water conditions. All successions, whether it starts in water or rocks or lands, they are always progressing towards the amasic conditions. Ecological successions characteristic, one of the most important characteristic features of communities communities they change in their compositions and structures of the ecosystem. It is due to the organisms that is living in that particular area. Species which start the successions pantu a species pioneer species species that remains at the end is known as climax species. White kala species on te seer or serial communities ecological successions primary successions to secondary successions. Primary successions the successions will start in an area where there is no life before or where there is no organic matters or soil before. These types of successions takes a long period of time. Examples would be like after volcanic eruptions where there is cool lava, or in an area where there is rocks. Secondary successions the successions that takes place in an area where there was life before or arguably it was all destroyed due to some natural calamities. These types take a shorter period of time. Examples would be forest which is destroyed due to fire. Soil life primary successions based on the habitat. Ecological successions can be of different types. Like if the succession starts in water, it is known as hydrex or hydrosphere. If it starts in rock, it is known as xeroc or xerosphere. If it starts in the land, it is known as lithosphere. Whether the successions is starting in water, rocks or lands, they always migrate or they always progress, leads to amasic conditions. Steps involved in ecological successions first step nudations nudations the formations of the area. Area volcanic eruptions akul lava namun rocks or forest which is already destroyed by some natural calamities. Formations of an area is the first steps of ecological successions. Next steps invasions. Invasions area the area which is formed. Species it is the entry or it is the invasions of a pioneer species by invasions pioneer species it can be in the form of seeds or it can be in the forms of spores, which is essence to like it can be wind, water, so invasions is the second steps of ecological successions. Invasions area form pioneer species on entry invasions a third steps aggregations aggregations species pioneer species they will start adapting to that area and they will start reproducing. Why process it is aggregations adaptations adaptations and reproductions of the pioneer species or of the species they will start adapting and they will start reproducing. A fourth step competitions. hey a species honki adapt honki reproduce they pen kha they'll start competing itself this honki compete the engine has changa if they are not if they are not favorable or if they are not adapted to that environment well then they will die there will be changes in the ecosystem ecosystem namun area changes changes due to the species which is already living before that ecosystem explain primary succession changes changes the ecosystem it becomes unsuitable for the species pioneer species in this case case first pioneer species case the changes in the ecosystem becomes unsuitable for the pioneer species, so the pioneer species the next species changes in the ecosystem suitable grow after this the fifth step, then it will go back to the second step. Here species due to changes in the ecosystem, a new species which is no longer the pioneer pioneer they become unsuitable for surviving in the changes ecosystem change pioneer species changes pioneer species survive so they die next species due to the changes in the ecosystem why changes suitable they will start adapting and reproducing and they'll start competing themselves, and changes in the ecosystem will be brought, and the next species will come again because the changes would become unsuitable for the present species. A next species then a cycle as a last step it will reach climax community or climax conditions. Or it is also known as the Mesic conditions. Climax communities reach why a species they can tolerate changes brought about by themselves as well as other species. Why species which can tolerate changes in the ecosystem, in the environment, which is brought by themselves as well as other species. Why species they are known as climax species. Ecosystem of components first nato, second nato, third na which is productivity, decompositions and energy flow. Tuna afford na nutrient cycles afford na le alas na plants they required many nutrients for their survival like for their growth, reproductions, metabolic activities, they required different kinds of nutrients. Nutrients carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, sulfur. There are many nutrients which the plants require for their growth, for their reproductions, for various metabolic processes. Nutrients or minerals, elements, it is found in the air. Soil, water. For example, carbon, it is from the air. Soil, phosphorus, sulfur, water, like oxygen, hydrogen, depending upon the source, depending upon where the nutrients or where the elements comes from, the nutrient cycles can be divided into two types. First, gaseous cycles. A second, sedimentary cycle. Gaseous cycle penka examples are carbon cycle. Carbon cycle penka it is an examples of gaseous cycles. Bangsakai jiale carbon penka it is in the forms of carbon dioxide which is present in the air. Why bana nitrogen nitrogen cycle bangle it is a gaseous cycle. Bangsakai jiale nitrogen is present in the atmosphere in the form of atmospheric nitrogen. This is from the air. Why bana sedimentary cycle the examples are phosphorus sulfur cycle it is sedimentary cycle because it is from the soil air soil in the form of salts they are sedimentary cycle. Nutrient cycles they are now known as biogeochemical cycles Bio it is dealing with living organisms. Geo art like rocks, water, the air, because art has many elements which is the main source of all which is the main source. Chemicals because it consists of many various compounds, ions, chemicals. Nutrient cycles is also now known as biogeochemical cycles. Term standing state standing state it is the amount of an element or it is the amount of nutrients which is present in the soil at a given time. It is known as standing state. Standing state is the amount of elements or nutrients which is found in the soil at a given time. Standing state nutrient cycles. Plants nutrients to reproduction for various metabolic processes. Nutrients like carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, hydrogen, calcium, zinc. It can be from the air, from the soil, and from the water. Based on the source from where these nutrients are found, nutrient cycles can be divided into two types: gaseous cycles and sedimentary cycle. Example is carbon cycle to phosphorus cycle in the gaseous cycle. Example carbon cycle engine. Carbon they are found in the forms of carbon dioxide from the air. Sedimentary cycles phosphorus cycle engine because this phosphorus usable form phosphate engine it is found in the soil. In the form of salts. They are sedimentary cycle. Nutrient cycles it is also known as biogeochemical cycles. Bio means living, geo means art, like rocks, water, air, chemicals. Standing state it is the amount of an elements or nutrients soil at a given time. Standing state carbon cycle ending. Carbon cycle the source of carbons on earth is oceanic to atmosphere. Most of the carbon is from the ocean. Carbon cycle ending. Let's say this is the land. Ocean atmosphere. Ocean. So carbon source of carbon on earth is from the atmosphere as well as from the oceans. Source engine source oceans and atmosphere here. About 71% of carbon is dissolved in the oceans in the form of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide dissolved in water. 71% carbon it is found in the oceans, and only about 1% of carbon is found in the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide, CO2. Hey, oceans are carbon dioxide, CO2 ki found it is responsible for the atmospheric carbon dioxide. Here, atmosphere carbon dioxide it is regulated. The amount is regulated by the oceanic reservoirs of carbon dioxide. Tun bang living organisms compositions bang inteleng 49% of the living organisms dry weight consists of carbon. Living organisms a dry weight if all the moisture is extracted, water content is extracted from the living organisms, then about 49% of the dry weight of that particular living organisms contains about 49% carbon. A cycle tuna ending tun bang plants kat control ding why bana let's say this is land, this is water. Water sungale there will be phytoplanktons. Phytoplanktons they are those minute unicellular organisms that can prepare their own food. So plants they'll be using CO2 from the atmosphere to prepare their own food, and phytoplanktons they'll be using CO2 that is dissolved in H2O, that is dissolved in the waters to prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis. Plants why bana phytoplanktons plants they are living organisms. We know that every living organisms respired. We undergo respirations. During respirations, what happens is that phytoplanktons then they will release CO2. Why bana plants during respirations they will release CO2 in the atmosphere during respirations. Respiration saha CO2 ki release engine O2 ki inhale ma ki lalud. In photosynthesis CO2 ki lalud engine O2 penha ki release. Hey, plants penha it will contain some carbon compounds. This plants when it is eaten up by animals. Animals they penha we are directly or indirectly depending on producers plants. Mala inik janga white carbon compounds so when animals die, animals plants their dead body they get decomposed. A dead body death and decay organic matters, or they undergo decompositions. They undergo decompositions, and after a long period of time they will form fossil fuel. Fossil fuel fossil fuel then they will use it for burning. When this fossil fuel is burned, burning of fossil fuel, electricity, vehicles, when we burn, and large amounts of CO2 is again released in the atmosphere. Fossil fuel they will be forming some limestone they will form the engine. Oceans oceanics phytoplanktons they will be eaten up by some zooplankton, and primary consumers let's say aquatic animals aquatic animals aquatic animals they will undergo respirations and they will release CO2 in the atmosphere. Carbon cycle atmosphere carbon dioxide on it is used up by the plants for photosynthesis. Plants they are again eaten up by animals. Animals plants they are incorporating the carbon elements in them. And when they die, their body will be decayed by decomposers, will be decomposed by bacteria, fungi, and decomposed the engine. After a long period of time, fossil fuels on form the engine. Hey, fossil fuels it will be taken out, extracted out by men, and when these are burned, they will release large amounts of CO2 again in the atmosphere. Oceans the phytoplanktons will be using the CO2 which is dissolved in the waters for making their own food, and they will be eaten up by aquatic animals. So these aquatic animals, phytoplanktons, when they respire, they will be releasing large amounts of CO2 in the atmosphere. In atmosphere carbon concentrations are only 1%. Nowadays the concentrations of CO2 in the atmosphere is increase due to excessive cutting of plants. Deforestations for constructions of roads, for constructions of malls, buildings, due to forest fires. The amount of CO2 is increasing in the atmosphere. When we burn woods, burning release CO2 in the atmosphere. So the amount of carbon dioxide nowadays is increasing. The amounts of the concentrations of carbon dioxide this types of cycles is also known as perfect cycles. Perfect cycles because the amount is not changed. Due to human exploitations of forests and all, carbon dioxide naturally the amount and the concentrations of carbon dioxide is not less or not more. Do not phosphorus cycle ending of phosphorus source of phosphorus it is rock. A source it is from the rock. Why usable form of phosphorus is phosphorus direct plants in Zangtelo. It has to first convert it into phosphate. Phosphate it is also known as the usable forms of phosphorus. Living organisms animals phosphorus it is found in our nucleic acid, like in our DNA, RNA, phosphate oxygen ATP adenosine triphosphate phosphorus oxygen coenzyme plasma membranes, shells, bones, teeth phosphorus oxygen. The phosphorus cycle first the source is the rocks rocks will start weathering. It will start breaking up into smaller pieces. Weathering will take place, and this phosphorus which is present in the rock, phosphorus, they will be dissolved in water. They will start dissolving in water. Dissolved, they will start forming. They will be converted into phosphate. Phosphate again it is the usable form. This phosphate it will be uptake by the plants, absorbed by the plants for their cell divisions, for making their plasma membranes, for certain metabolic activities, enzymatic activities. Phosphate absorbed these plants will be again eaten up by animals. Plants they will be accumulating the phosphate which is present in the plants. When these animals or plants their body will be decomposed by their death. Body will be decomposed. Dead remains decomposed. Their dead remains will be decomposed by decomposers like bacteria, fungi, decomposed then they will release the minerals, nutrients in the soil. Soil plants then uptake then the animals will eat the plants and they will accumulate the phosphorus, and when they die it will be decomposed and the cycles will go on. Phosphorus cycle then in carbon cycle phosphorus carbon cycle to phosphorus cycle a difference carbon cycle and phosphorus cycle a difference ni ending a first difference idea carbon cycle it has an atmospheric input. Although most of the carbon is present in the ocean, the atmosphere bangsa yang atoms present it involve atmospheric input. Phosphorus cycle it does not involve no atmospheric input is found. A first difference engine. A second difference na din carbon cycle respiratory movement ki involve engine. Respiratory movement or gaseous exchange takes place of carbon. Gaseous exchange of carbon in the form of carbon dioxide takes place in carbon cycle. In phosphorus cycles there is no gaseous exchange. Gaseous exchange there. So the two basic main difference between carbon cycle and phosphorus cycle is that in carbon cycle atmospheric input is seen. In phosphorus cycles there is no atmospheric input. Atmospheric to kisay kaloma. In carbon cycle respiratory movements or there is a gaseous exchange of carbon in the form of carbon dioxide between living organisms, but in phosphorus cycle there is no such gaseous exchange.